Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
Well, hello. This is Chris Parker back, and I have a special guest today, and I'm delighted because although we've been communicating on email, this is the first time that I've met Diego Menchaca. And Diego is with teamscope, it's a company and app, and our connection is through Rockstart, the startup accelerator based in at least originally from here in the Netherlands. And I believe Diego was in one of the first cohorts of Rockstart. And so I'm delighted to have you here. So Diego, could you just tell us a little bit who you are, what do you do, and very interested in why do you do what you do?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
A small remark is that I am from the first batch, but of the digital health program, which ran here in Nijmegen.
Okay.
And well, I'm 32 years old. I'm originally from Chile. I'm a designer at heart, and I've been traveling all over the world since I was a child. A few years ago, I came into the issue of data collection in clinical research, and I decided to solve that issue with a company called teamscope.
Great. And can you dive into teamscope a little bit? So, because I'm not in the clinical research space, like what does that mean? What does teamscope do?
Yeah, so teamscope is the world's easiest to use data collection app. And our viewers might be thinking, well, what is a data collection app? And a data collection app is a system or a platform that allows you to transform a paper form that you use to collect medical data or research data into a form that you can use digitally and hence anywhere and anytime.
Cool. And we will put in the show notes the links to your LinkedIn and Twitter and the company page as well. So I'm just curious, who would be because I guess with COVID going on these days, and there's going to be a lot of trials and data capturing. Is that one of the ideal use cases for this? Is that is there a way for teamscope to contribute to that effort?
Yeah, it has, and we've been quite in the around February. I was discussing with one of my colleagues who we write content with, and we're thinking, well, what do we do with this pandemic? We have a tool for data collection. Should we put out a blog post of how we can help? And at that moment, this was mid-February, I felt that it was a bit opportunistic yet to create content for it. And I said, let's just maybe wait a little bit. And then around the first week of March, a researcher from Italy created a study called COVID-19 and then started to build forums on our platform and then reached out and said, hey, I am the CTO of the Italian Society for Infectious Disease and Tropical Medicine, and we need to start collecting data on coronavirus ASAP. We are an association of 40 hospitals, and we've chosen your platform to collect data for that. And that was the start of a roller coaster, which now has a bit calmed down. But we've been very lucky to play a role in that by giving researchers that are in the front line fighting this disease a easy-to-use tool that allows them to configure forms and collect data securely while they're with the patient. These are nurses, doctors, or medical staff within the hospital that need to collect data, and we've been very fortunate to be able to help them out. And that was just one project. We've been able to scale out or scale up in other countries as well. Organizations in different parts like Brazil and other countries have been starting to use our platform for their coronavirus research.
Outstanding. Well, one of the topics I like to bring up is the topic of focus. I have a couple questions on that. And the first question is, can you describe what your perfect customer looks like? Like, what is that persona? Is that a hospital or a group of hospitals? Is that like is that the place where you perfectly match and solve their problem ideally?
Yeah.
Or how would you describe your perfect customer?
Well, today we grow not through sales, but we grow through our product and through product-led growth. So the product sells itself, and we rank pretty high on Google for search keywords like data collection app or data collection software. And people Google those words, and some of them sign up for an account, and some of them are fortunate, or we're fortunate to be able to help them out as a client. And the people that are Googling this it's a bottom up approach. So it's not the managers within the hospital. It's a nurse, a doctor, a pediatrician, a researcher, an academic researcher. It's themselves who have that itch. They will have to deal with some outdated system, and they will know how much that will hurt. So they're like, I'm not going to do that. There has to be something better. So they go online and they Google, like we do all day, and they find the answers to the questions. And some of those answers are software. Yeah,
I love it. My typical roles are in enterprise technology, CIO, CTO, and it's, if you go back a couple of years ago, we used to call that shadow IT. Those damn people, buying tech with their credit card. Blah, blah, blah. But that's how it works now. People, there's so many, amazing tools out there that are just available, and the people on the front line trying to solve the problem. So I think it's a beautiful way to sell. Just let the product sell itself, make it findable. Know who the customer are, and make it super easy for them to adopt it and create value.
Yeah.
So no, lovely. So question for you is, of all the things you could have done in the world, because originally from Chile, I've been there once. Cool. Beautiful memory. Traveled all over. How did you end up in? You made decisions to end up in Nijmegen. I guess I heard from you earlier that you've been there before, and now you're working on this, medical data collection app. How have you decided to focus your life on this?
Yeah. Well, there's someone that asks me this very often. And that's my girlfriend. And she says, like, teamscope today is doing pretty good, but there's times when it's been doing really bad. And I've had the darkest days as an entrepreneur and maybe as a person. And she asks, like, until when, or what guides you? And for me, the buffer is those first 5 seconds when I open my eyes in the morning. There's nobody in the office that's going to be waiting for me to pat me in the back for making it early or on time. I could stay in bed for 5 more minutes or the entire day, and I decide to get out of bed and come to work. As long as it's that feeling of, I got to get out of bed. I got to do this. Like, today's going to be a great day. That's the buffer that tells me whether what I'm going to be working on that day or that week or that month is aligned with myself. The rest, I could dive into other systems and everything, but that I felt that, especially when I've been faced with my darkest days as an entrepreneur, that is what really answers to those existential questions in which focus is a thing, but also, do you give up or not? And
why do you not give up?
Yeah, I love challenges. And I like, money's okay, and money allows me to, but I really don't give a crap about money. Like, I just love challenges. I love working on big challenges, and I love working on things where the chance of success is very low and the chance of failure is very high. I love drawing and designing, and I hired myself for teamscope as a designer 2.5 years ago because I was struggling with finding designers too. And I love to design, and I do pretty much all the designs for teamscope or website or product. And I don't give up because I have still a really good job to have and to serve these users all around the world. It's really magical.
Tell me more about this serving the users. Is it and I'm just really curious because I find sometimes I also have that question of do you give up? Do you adjust? Do you when is the problem solved? Is the timing wrong? Because I've sometimes worked closely, deeply as part of management teams when, in hindsight, the timing was just flat out wrong, and we just kept throwing ourselves against the wall. So you have an a beautiful internal motivation, but is there also a part of the motivation from I guess helping people get healthy as well? Is that a driver? Is it or help the doctors succeed? Or I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah, I think if I would be working on something different, I wouldn't get that same certainty in those first 5 seconds of the morning. And I think this problem is a phenomenal problem to solve, because not only are the user interfaces that these people struggle with today a big headache for them, and a frustration, and a reason why sometimes they will never go back to research, and they hated research. So there's that interface thing, which you can go so deep in as a product designer. But the output of it is also amazing. What isn't measured cannot be improved. And we've had a study, a researcher, I was doing a survey on certain things about our product, and I reached out to one of our users, and he replied, saying, "Diego, we just wrapped up. It's a group of researchers from the University of Sao Paulo. They did a study, and they enrolled during the corona crisis more than 1,000 patients that were positive with COVID-19. And he said, "Diego, like, you guys, we could have done it without teamscope. We could have done it without an app. It was 100 residents collecting data every single day in the emergency department, and they would not have been able to, or they would have been able to do that with paper forms, but that adds an entire layer of stress to those people that need help and a pat on the back because they're fighting a pandemic. They don't need to be struggling with outdated systems or with transcribing from paper to Excel in their free time. So it's still, I think, the delay that is in the market in data collection systems for research in general, and the output of it, that it's just each time so refreshing. Each time is a project, or when sometimes projects, well, they self-serve themselves. So I only learn about them when maybe they'll reach out for help or in our customer success interactions. But each time it's so insightful and refreshing to learn what they're using the app for, what they're researching about, what communities they're supporting, and what they're trying to get out with that data.
Do you also aggregate the data, maybe anonymously, for bulk use, or is their data really private in their little space? And
yeah, it's private in their little space. The only reason why I would have access to it is if they invite me to their project as any other user. It's outside of our business. That is their business, that is their data, and we take data security very, very, it's highly regarded in the way we think and we make choices. So, No,
nice. So, you already mentioned, and again, having the product sell itself, I think is I've been on a couple conversations the last couple of days where talking about the difference of selling and allowing people to buy, as a difference of a mindset. And so I'm already really appreciating your mindset. But can you talk a little bit about what is your formula for growth? Meaning, it sounds like you're starting with product, and then you have got some Google search. But what does that dialogue journey look like, or how have you built that out? That brings people in, to become aware of the possibility that it will solve their problem. They can sign up, and then they actually, use it and create value for themselves.
Yeah. Well, and there's a book which I've read, which is called Product-Led Growth. I highly recommend it to anybody that's struggling with sales. We'll put it on the notes of the show.
Yep.
And when I started let me first just very briefly tell you what did not work.
Beautiful.
And sales was, look, I'm a guy that likes to make new friends and likes to interact. I have no issue with doing sales. But it did not work. It was a catastrophe. And inner product, even if we would charge more, it did not work. It drove us down to my darkest days as an entrepreneur. And right around that time, which it drove me down because it was such a struggle to get a new client and doing all this cold calling, cold emailing, cold outreach, LinkedIn outreach, all this stuff just it was not working. It could have been that I wasn't doing it correctly enough. That's also a possibility. But I felt I was taking from people's time. And so then I said, okay, well, we need to fix this. And I built up a new kind of go-to-market strategy. Before, I had read this book about product-led growth. But then when I read it, I was like, why did I get this book? Or why did I start reading about this stuff 5 years ago? Like first day of Rockstar Accelerator, just grab this, read it, like don't do anything else. And so then I said, okay, if I don't want to take from people's time and be spamming them and be a hassle for them and a pain in their day-to-day because I'm interrupting them as they're getting their work done with a LinkedIn message, well, let's build content that attracts them organically. And that's when I started to work on our SEO. And that was almost all of last year, working very intensely myself and Diego, one of my colleagues, in just writing content that would put us up in the rank on Google. And so that was what has laid the foundation today for our growth. Today we get 5 to 10 new users every single day organically through our content on Google, and then those visitors arrive on a page which explains to them why not to use spreadsheets for clinical research, or arrive on a guide on how to collect data securely while using mobile forms or different content that we have. And then some of them will be more curious and they will perhaps watch a video where we teach them how to use a part of the product. They haven't signed up maybe yet, but we already start to educate them. And then they're like, okay, this is it. Like, this makes sense. And then they'll create an account. And then since they already watched a 1 minute video on how to export your data or how to create a form, then they're just in it and they're going off with it.
Yeah. No, brilliant. And you mentioned about either already doing or starting some podcasting. Is that part of the content plan as well, or is that just something else to do for fun?
Yeah, it's one of my projects. So we'll be working on that, because I think that something also that happens with our users, that they have amazing stories to tell. So these are true heroes out in the field, working with their communities, working with patients. So these are people that are just heroes, honestly. And it's still on the works, but we will be surprising our audience with interview content to give a platform for those people to tell their story, because they deserve it.
Well, like this, because this podcast has started. For me, it's quite selfish actually, but I'm just interested in learning and discovering from other people who are, pursuing their passion and building out their businesses, and like you said, you started more traditional outbound selling, and that not feeling good, that not working, so it's just fascinating to learn that and see. Well, I guess one of my beliefs is there's so much knowledge out there on how to run a business, but we all don't know it yet. And so the more we can have these small moments and compare notes and get these things like product-led growth, that just helps us all succeed. So for me, it's a bit of a selfish motivation, but then also other people, I'm just enjoying this, and I know so many other people will really appreciate and learn from your story. And imagine yours. Not only will you learn from the researchers that are using it for your own product awareness and stuff, but all the other researchers will learn from what they're doing as well, and how to what's working and what's not doing it. So I think it's almost there's almost a moral imperative for you to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just a thought there. Sorry, but the whys. Like, why do you do what you do? You could have been an engineer. Why are you a doctor? Or why are you a nurse? Or those, I think, are just fascinating things to uncover. In a podcast format. Yeah,
that's that was the first question on this, which is who are you and what do you do and why? And I got that from a dear friend of mine who's a storyteller and filmmaker, because I think that sets the tone for the whole thing. Because you could easily have been doing this for money. That is a motivator for some people, or you could have been doing this because you wanted to solve a technical challenge, or there's so many different reasons what motivates people, and and it's really fascinating to discover that and then see how they create something based on that. So I hope you do it. I love it. So you mentioned data security, and it is an app. So I'm just curious, how do you? The question is, how do you continually, deliver, maybe updates or consistent service? Because I'm not sure how big your team is, but how are you fulfilling your promise? So when people, with the actual product, I mean, when people sign up, and you have service issues and things, how do you organize that efficiently as a small, essentially startup or scale up?
Yeah, small startup. Yeah. The amount of work that is required for customer support today is luckily pretty low for the amount of growth that we have or active users. So it's not like we have such a big requirement. And I think that if we backtrack on why today we can scale up at this very minimum cost in terms of customer success or customer support, is because I think we've been fortunate to make wise decisions years back on certain UX or UI patterns or decisions that we made. It's the things that we took out in a certain moment that we were designing a screen that allows us today to not have to train users, or they just watch a 1 minute and 30-second video. That allows us today to minimize that. Doesn't mean that we don't have bugs or things to fix. Obviously, there's things to improve and new features to build out, but the amount, like I said, the amount of work required for each new user to and to support them is very, very low.
Nice.
Yeah.
And from a development side, it sounds like you have a backlog there of features that are coming in. Do you think the product is pretty well established, or is there a long roadmap of new features?
Yeah, there's a list of limitations, which is a public list of things that we don't do today and we want to do or be capable of doing as a product. And we need to catch up with it, and we're working as fast as we can to get those things crossed out. I've also made decisions previously on at what pace to fundraise or certain things in terms of our capacity to solve them faster, which have an effect today. But I still get those first 5 seconds of the morning when I get out. I have the same butterfly, so I will be happy to keep on to making those improvements on the product and working hard on them. Yeah.
Why you just used two different words there? I'm curious why the language. You have a list of limitations.
Yeah.
That is a fascinatingly negative term. But then later you just call them improvements. So is it?
Yeah.
Was that a conscious choice to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make the list of limitations as opposed to the
like a product roadmap. Yeah. Since I had like this darkest days as an entrepreneur, which sales was not working, and I was trying to oversell ourselves or, I didn't want to be a pain, but I was being a pain for these people that was getting an email on their inbox, which they didn't, like somebody was spamming them or say, hey, try out this new app. Then I said, okay, I need to repurpose this in terms of how I'm thinking. And I've also read a book which it's called Starting with No, about negotiation. And it's a fascinating book on how one of the key ideas is that we cannot change anyone in our lives. We can only change ourselves. And it's that with that idea that I make pretty much every single decision in my business today, or try to. In our fundraising and everything, is like I cannot make a user. So what we do is we start with honesty and say, hey, like we're not. This is our limitations, and if there's 10 other apps or software out there which are very, very good, to a certain extent, they will also get the job done. There's great people over there working for them. I can connect you to them. And if you have second thoughts, come back to us, and I'm happy to help you out as well with our software. And please keep in mind that we're not perfect, and these are 10 limitations, which we have today.
No,
yeah,
I love it. You mentioned a couple of these times the darkest days as an entrepreneur. I'm curious if my view on darkest days are just beautiful opportunities for growth. Because honestly, if you hadn't gone through the darkest days, you would never have been forced to or allowed yourself to rethink your product and your go-to-market strategy and what works for you. So I'm just curious, if you look back at your darkest days, it feels like you still refer to those in a bit of a negative context when it sounds like it was an amazing gift. So
yeah.
how do you reflect back to that period? Shall we call it a period of discovery?
Yeah. Well, we could also call it like I heard in a podcast recently. I don't see them necessarily as a negative thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a process. We're all in a process as individuals, but they were not nice. Like, I mean, I called everybody, said, "Hey guys, like, I'm giving up. Like, that's it. So and so date, postmortem on the website." Like, and they're part of it, but it doesn't mean that they're negative in a way. They're just they came with this realization of like, crap, like things are not working out, and we could also call them the lightest days, because I get your point. They're not, and I don't, when I call them the darkest days, maybe it's because it's part of my storytelling, or but I don't see them necessarily as negative days. And I think, and I've had amazing walks in my life, literally as a person in complete darkness. And they were the most beautiful walks I've ever done as a person, literally walking in the darkness.
And I think as an entrepreneur, in the phase of startup, when you have not learned everything you need to learn in order to actually have a viable business, have discovered who your customer is, and I think you should. It's almost like you choose to walk in darkness at some point. I'm going to do this, and there will be a time of darkness, and I will have that beautiful moment. It does. Okay, of course, it can be scary and shitty and horrible and painful, but I think that's part of the journey. So I'm delighted to hear about it. So
yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I'm also delighted to, as we're talking, to do a little bit of catharsis and remember them, and I can see also your coaching capabilities coming out. Or so yeah.
Well, I just love these conversations. So thank you.
Yeah,
for being here.
It's very interesting.
One quick question before we close is there anything in your life that business or professional that tool, trick, shortcut that has helped you simplify your life recently?
Yeah, two things, and very briefly. One of the things, I love taking cold showers. So that is a great way to start my morning and to refresh the mind and just start the day like feeling great. And I do those every month of the year, all year round, anywhere where I'm living. I love taking cold showers.
Cool.
And the other thing, which simplifies a lot, is fasting, which is a topic which we could do a couple of long talks about. But those are things which they simplify my life a lot. Knowing that I don't need a hot shower to be happy and have a good start of the day. And if it's as cold as it is even better. And not depending on food to function and be happy.
Diego, outstanding. I have some like LinkedIn and your company website. Is there a specific way that people want to reach out to you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. If somebody wants to just connect, they can add me on LinkedIn. And if somebody wants to do or needs to do research and data collection, they can go to teamscopeapp.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Learn more at ebullient.com/podcast.